Hello and welcome back to another episode of the International Greenkeepers For Hire podcast. My name is Bradley, I am your podcast host and we are the International Greenkeepers For Hire team. So on today's podcast it's going to be a little bit different than the usual podcasts that we do. If you haven't listened to any, please go back and listen to them. We've had some great conversations with people that have done the Ohio State programs, people that have worked overseas, and various other topics, some real good information in there. But today's topic is how to shine at payrise time. And this is actually a recording from Saltex 2021, which was hosted by the GMA in the UK. I attended and was part of a panel debate with Frank Newberry, who is a GMA approved management trainer and consultant. And basically we're going to talk about how to shine at payrise time, the what's, when's and why's. So please enjoy and thank you for tuning in.
We've got Bradley Tennant with us and Frank Newberry. So welcome to you both. Bradley, if you just wanted to give an introduction as to what your job role is currently, and Frank, the same to you thereafter.
Yeah, I'm Bradley from International Greenkeepers For Hire. I'm also head groundsman at a private school, Crossfield School in Reading. So I have a large background in grounds and greenkeeping, but also look after the International Greenkeepers or associations for greenkeepers, ground staff and volunteers. It's an international hub to get everyone together in one place and the industry going in one direction.
Okay, my name's Frank Newberry and I'm a GMA trainer and coach, meetings facilitator, but I also love to help people to get pay rises. I think that's a good service to offer, and I do that. Sometimes I'm paid, sometimes I do it voluntary at my church, and I will have like mock negotiations and mock interviews over Zoom, things like that, and I've been doing that for about 30 years now, and it's a joy to work in this particular sector, turf care, grounds and greenkeeping.
We're very pleased to have you. Bradley, on the subject of making the most of your chance to shine when it comes to payrise time, can you, is it something that you've approached previously? Have you requested a pay rise in the past? And if you could just talk us through it, how you kind of went about it and what the outcome was.
Yeah, I've approached pay rises before, actually really poorly, underprepared, and not quite ready for what to expect when you go in there. And then that sort of set me back a bit because the next one was sort of the same in reviews. But it's really important to prepare in advance, prepare your case, making sure that you're setting out exactly what you want from it. And it might not just all be about pay, it might be training as well, but then it all leads back to pay, so it sort of all bundles back together. But I definitely advise that you put your case together before you went in for a pay rise.
And just on the background of your example that you've used, Bradley, what kind of spurred you on to kind of want to go in there and request a pay rise? Had you kind of moved up a position? Had you taken on more responsibility? Had your personal circumstances changed? What was the background to the example that you gave?
So pretty much all of the above, but the main one being qualification wise, going through the GMA and doing those level 3, level 4, level 5, building that background of knowledge and experience is worth a lot more to the company when you've got that sort of stuff going on. So it's definitely beneficial for everyone. If you can do a better job day to day, better results, better performance, and then the people receiving that performance, whether it's a school, football club, rugby club, they're all going to be much happier with a better playing service.
Yeah. So Frank, we come to you. What are the fundamentals when asking for a pay rise?
Yeah, I think the main fundamental is that you have to understand that you are trading. You're not Oliver Twist asking for more food and getting a clip round the ear for your trouble. You are trading, and you need to, qualifications, the example there that Brad just mentioned, and I was working recently with an organisation that does reward people for getting their qualification, for enhancing their skills. And if you know you're going to be trading, you go into a negotiation with much more confidence. And you may not have what they want right now, but you need to be able to tell them that you're going to be like it at the end of the year. For example, you're going to be a better bargain for them. And you trade, you say, I don't have this now, but if you'll delegate this work to me in the next 12 months, and coach me and develop me for just a few hours a month, I will demonstrate to you that I'm worth another, whatever it is, £2,000, £5,000 a year. And I've done that myself, and I've seen other people do that. Fundamentally, you are trading, and you are, if you're not in a strong trading position right now, that doesn't mean to say you can't be. And go and ask. Another fundamental is you must ask. Most people, I was watching a documentary the other night, that says that 50% of people haven't had a pay rise for years. And why? Because they're afraid to ask. Well, you should ask. You're worth it. Ask.
And when we, as an example there of kind of the people that haven't had a pay rise for years, you spoke there, okay, of a pay rise ahead of training, or ahead of kind of, projecting where you wanted to be in 6, 12, 18 months time. What if it's retrospectively and you've completed, personal CPD, or you've taken yourself off and you've done a course, and is it important to build a portfolio to present and say, give examples of kind of what you've done and kind of the advancements that's going to offer to your role, and why, going back to the trading, why it's kind of important that it is represented in your kind of salary?
Much better if you can do it projecting into the future.
Okay.
But yeah, if you've got those qualifications and the employer didn't know that you had them, you're coming to him a more valuable, a better qualified, a more skilled employee potentially, if they don't know. But yeah, get it out on the table as soon as you can. What do you want from the job? Go and see your boss and say, I want a career. I want to stay here and do well here. Is there going to be a problem with that? Ask them on day one. Ask them when they give you your interview results saying that you passed the interview. Start negotiating from minute one. And if you come to my job clinic later today or tomorrow, we can go through all the things that you can do to shine in the eyes of your employer. What I call no cost or low cost, that are of high benefit to the employer and clearly financial benefit to you when you demonstrate your worth to the employer. But like helping him with his workload, or her with her workload, asking to delegate tasks, dirty jobs they don't like doing. Let them free up more time for themselves because they're delegating to you.
Yeah. And Bradley, we touched on before kind of your previous experience in requesting a pay rise. Are you on a CPD program at the moment? Are you undergoing education? Where's kind of like the next steps, and how does that tie into kind of the topic that we're talking about here?
I'm not at the moment, but I have just finished recently my level 5 through the GMA, and that was the same process. I went into my manager once I've completed that and said, I've now completed this qualification with this experience and gained this knowledge base. This is now worthwhile for the business moving forward. And like Frank said, I can now do this and save X amount of money. And it's always worth putting those spreadsheets together to say, I can save this much. And particularly the big one is usually like tree surgery. Every golf course and football ground, somewhere there'll be a tree of some sort. And you can say, I'll do my chainsaw course and I can save X amount versus getting contractors in. Can I have even half of that towards my pay rise? And that's a good option, just one of many. You've got spraying and other bits like that.
Yeah, that's a really good example there of the tree surgery, because I guess these people control the purse strings. So if you can show them you can develop, feel more appreciated in yourself, but also saving them, money. It's a win-win situation.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Cost savings are very attractive to an employer, and why shouldn't you get a share of that if you are the ones that develop the cost savings?
No,
But
agree with you.
It can also be very difficult, especially for the likes of working at universities, where you're inside a pay structure, and there isn't really any way out of that at a certain position. So if you're at ground level, there'll be a cap, and that's it. But in them situations, maybe you've got to look elsewhere instead.
Yeah, that's really...
And if you are in that situation, which I've been in other careers, where you're marking time because there's a scale, then still add to your own talent base, your own skill base, so that when you do make that move, as you just hinted there, you'll be ready to go as a better qualified person. And your current employer has got to come to terms with that. I've been offered a job with this much more money because I can do this, this and this. How do you want to play it?
Yeah.
I like it here, I'd love to stay, but I've got a family, I've got commitments, I've got responsibilities. And I was just thinking, listening to Brad a moment ago, it's not just cost savings, but it's also time savings. You can say to the employer, your immediate boss, say, your immediate supervisor or line manager, you can say, if you let me do this work for you, it'll free up 2 hours a week for you, and you can concentrate on the things that you've always wanted to do. So make it, very clear that you're there to help the boss.
Exactly. I think that's a really interesting point that you both raised there, in terms of if your pay scale is capped, you've got to look for other opportunities in terms of developing yourself personally, with perhaps short courses or qualifications, in the frame of mind that that potentially in this role it wouldn't lead to a salary increase, but you would use the same principles to kind of sell yourself forward to doing that qualification under that employer. That's really interesting.
Additional responsibilities, being able to say to your manager, or put on your CV saying, I've managed the team for 6 months while they've been away, or I've been sort of like a charge hand or a lead. That is so valuable to some places, because they want that experience, even at ground level, to say, the boss is off, we need someone to look after the show. So it can be a good tick for your CV and for your pay rise.
Yeah. And the pay budget might be quite separate to the training and development budget. So if you want me to stay, I want to go on these courses, I want to do these things, I want to visit these venues to look for best practice. I want to be able to go to Wimbledon, I want to be able to go to Lord's, and I want you to pay me to do that. Off season, sure. But I want to visit these places and bring back the good ideas to our venue.
Exactly.
And so it's an attractive option and great for you too.
Yeah, it's selling the positives of that as well. That's really good. We've talked about the positive things to do, the tips. What about anything to avoid, Frank?
I think you avoid what I said at the outset, which is don't be Oliver Twist asking for more. You must say, I want to talk to you about my future in this organisation. So don't get caught up in your own past disappointments, your own past inability to communicate. I've noticed in the 30 years I've been in this sector that employers tend to promote people with social skills. And I don't mean social media, that's great, but we're talking about people who can converse, people who can persuade, people who can influence. And in my experience, they promote them for having a greater skill in that than they have in having a greater skill in, say, turf care and turf management. If they feel you can string a few sentences together and be friendly and sociable, you'll get promoted, which means more money.
Yeah. And going back to your example, Brad, when you went in previously, did you have a percentage in mind, or a figure in mind that you wanted an increase to? And just off the back of Brad's answer, Frank, if you could kind of, open up that topic of conversation there, if it's important to go in with a number or...
Yeah. No, previously, as I mentioned, I went in pretty unprepared, but there's the likes of the GMA standard recommended wages, which is a fantastic resource to be able to use that, because that's a piece of paper you can put in front of your employer and say, this is what people are paying elsewhere. I might not be anywhere near it, I might be just within it, but it's a good guidance to work off. And again, with that, you can put your qualifications to that as well and say, these marry up, I've got my level 2, I'm after X amount, this is what it says on the recommendations.
Yeah.
my building on that, my main tip, and this is for anyone, is always ask for more. Stop worrying about whether you're worth it. It's your duty to the profession that you ask for more. They will then say no, which is great, because sooner or later they've got to say yes. So they may say no to 1,000, but they'll say yes to 600, and you say, well, why don't we say 900 then? Well, I'll agree. And you get into bargaining with them. But if you don't ask for more, you're not going to get what your minimum was. Yeah. So have a best figure, and also one you'll settle for.
Yeah.
But don't tell them the one you'll settle for. No. Always ask for more, and they'll feel good knocking you down.
Yeah.
They'll feel they've done a good job knocking you. He came in, he wanted 1,000, but we settled for 600. Yeah. I got him.
Yeah. And I guess with that experience, you can use it to your advantage in terms of perhaps not securing the amount that you pitch for, but then, as you say, being knocked down, and then at a later date you could say, well, what have I got to do to get what I want in that? And
they must understand that there'll be payback next year if you didn't get what you wanted.
Yeah.
So, and you can even say, okay, well, I'll settle for 550, but next year I'm going to need payback.
Yeah.
And say it with a smile.
It doesn't necessarily need to be pay increase in one big go. Negotiating.
Could be perks, could be opportunity.
Yeah, and then over a set period of time. So if you said, I'm going to be here for 5 years, I want to do these courses, can I get £500 a year, as I'm working through my courses as an incentive to stay as well. So you can put all that together, but it's also, I think it's important to draw the line at some point, because obviously you still want to work there at the end of the day. So you don't really want to be causing any hassle between you and your managers, because you want to keep your job as well.
Yeah, I think you make a very good point there. You must end, it's what's called a warm ending, and you say at the end, oh, you're a good negotiator, but I think we've made a real deal here. And if you don't think I'm worth it, you're going to tell me.
Yeah.
So give the power back.
Yeah, and I think going back to your previous point, Frank, on maintaining good social skills, that's really important. You don't want to go in, away and there's mugs broken on the floor and everything like that, because that would have been a disaster. And that's your job, really. At the end of the day, you want the best, you want to give the best, but you also want to be valued and receive the best. So we've gone away. We've made a kind of a CPD program. We know kind of what we want to pitch for. We know what we want to do. How do we approach it? How do we go to our line manager to make them aware? What's the best course of action here in terms of kind of posing the question? Yes.
I think the biggest point is picking the right time. Right, you don't want to be going in for a pay rise just off the bat of a machine breaking or a green's failed or something's gone wrong. And you want to be making sure that you're doing it just before a budget review or just after a big tournament or something like that.
Especially if there's been compliments.
Yeah. So it's a good time, basically. And then build off that, because you can also use that as part of your package to say, this tournament went really well. We'd like them to keep going like this in the future, and here's my input from it, and this is how we can keep moving forward.
Yeah. I
think that's very good advice. The thing I've also learned in this industry is that the word negotiation intimidates people, so I might not use the word negotiation, even though I want to negotiate. I want a pay rise. I might say something like, it'd be good to have a review and talk about my future in the organisation. When would be a good time for you? And don't let them tell you now. Don't say, well, let's do it now. No. Let them stew for a couple of days. Make it 3 or 4, maybe Monday of next week, so that they spend the next few days wondering what it is that Frank wants, that Brad wants,
Yeah.
I wonder what that's about. Has he been offered another job? Why does he want to talk about his future? Has someone upset him? Let them stew a bit. So don't say, yeah, right, we'll do it now. No.
Yeah.
So I'd like to talk to you about my future. I'd like to have a review, talk about my future. And of course, you can review that, start with that great experience if the tournament went well that you're referring to there.
Yeah. Is Obviously, if you're employed, hopefully you'd have a good employer that would do an annual appraisal or appraisal review. Is that a good time to approach it at that point, Frank?
All the professional advice is to keep them apart.
Okay,
Keep
that's
them
interesting.
apart.
Yeah. Okay.
Because some years it might work well for you because you've had a good year, or the organisation's had a good year. Other years it might not be that way. There may have been a recession, maybe in a pandemic, and I think you keep the two apart.
Okay.
You may, once you're negotiating, you want to establish your value, but I think a separate review to do that. Call it a review and a discussion about my future, rather than tag it on the back of an annual review.
Appraisal. Okay.
Annual appraisal.
Yeah. Because that's you may have kind of your CPD for the year outlined in your appraisal, but it's best to keep it kind of separate and kind of ask the question.
Use it strategically.
Yeah.
As opposed to obviously.
Yeah. I think the good thing about an appraisal is if you are building towards, on the larger scale of things, asking that question, there's you've got your kind of objectives in black and white, and you've got your program set out in black and white. Anything else to add on the topic in any final words from?
Well, my final word would be go for it, because most people in this country are not going for it. Most people are not asking for a pay rise, so you should.
Yeah.
Because they can afford it.
Definitely, and as an industry, we need to move forward in the right direction, and it's not going to get any better just sitting around complaining about it. So just get in there, build your case, and see what you can get.
Coming up next, after this episode, we have a chat with Mike O'Keefe from the Ohio State program, so make sure you tune back in for that one. Thanks for listening, guys. Please like, comment, subscribe. You may have already listened to this on YouTube somewhere. We did post the actual video, but if you're listening again on a podcast, thank you very much. And if you'd like to check out some more, please do. It's been great hosting these podcasts, and we're looking forward to doing more in the future.